Cool. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at propositional logic and how we can form propositional logic statements. We're going to be focusing in on the syntax of propositional logic. If there are any questions throughout the session, just drop them in the chat. Again, use the stage chat, not general, because that's what I can see on my other monitor. Yeah, let's begin. Okay, so symbolic logic languages. So we're going to just briefly introduce this, but this will be talked about more by Kieran in a future lesson. Symbolic logic languages, they're formal languages that allow us to conduct logical statements, logical reasoning through manipulation of symbols. So every language has two important aspects when it's defined, and that's its syntax and its semantics. One second, guys. Cool. Okay, yeah. So it's syntax and its semantics. The syntax of a language describes the well-formed sequences of symbols, how we can put these symbols together, and then its semantics is the meaning of those symbols. Today we're going to be focusing on the syntax of a language. We're going to be focusing specifically on propositional logic. So in propositional logic, it's a type of symbolic logic language, and we use it to reason about logical statements, which we call propositions. And a proposition is just some statement that can be in one of two states. It can either be true or false. And so what we can do with this is we can build up larger propositions from smaller propositions, and we can combine propositions into greater statements. Propositional logic consists of these four key connectives right at its core. So we have conjunction, which is the same as just doing a logical AND of two propositions. We have disjunction, which is the same as OR. And then we have implication. So A implies B means if A is true, then B is true. And then we have negation. So not A is just if A is true, then not A is false. But we'll look at how we can use these in different proofs and how we can deduce proofs in certain ways. So these two symbols represent true and false. It's just a logical way of writing it. This is just like a kind of upside down T. I think in LaTeX it's /top and /bot, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, so that's true and false, so you might see that later on. So precedence. Could you guys put in chat what's the precedence of these four operators? Which ones do we look at first, and which ones do we consider last? Which ones have the highest? I like to think of it in terms of stickiness. Like which one's the most sticky to the propositions? Not, and, or implies. Negation at the top. Yeah. So negation. Yeah, negation's at the top. That's one of the first ones we consider. I'm not sure why this setting keeps resetting. Negation, conjunction, disjunction, implication. Okay, let's see. So negation, yep, and then conjunction, disjunction, implication. Perfect. So all this means is if we have an expression, like not A, or let's say A and not B and C. We take this as A and then this not is stuck to this B, and then we have another and C. It's not B and C. It wouldn't be this because the not is right next to the B, and so it sticks to that B. Yeah, we'll also look at some examples of that later on. I think, Manj, what you're talking about is associativity. So precedence tells us what operation to do first, but if all of the operations are the same, that's when we have to look at associativity. So say we had something like A and B and C. Associativity tells us that we look at, I believe, left associativity. So yeah, this tells us that we look at the leftmost derivation first. So if it was A and B and C, we'd first work out what A and B is, and then we'd AND that with C, and that's how we'd evaluate that expression. if we wanted to do right associativity, we'd do these two first, and then we'd get the result of that and AND it with this A. But we'll assume left associative for now. Cool. That brings me on to something else. I feel like this will be a better way of representing different expressions. If we have a propositional statement and we want to represent it graphically, we can use something called a parse tree. So what that lets us do, let's say we have this here, A and B. We can have operators in nodes, and then their children will be the operands of that operator. So in this case, what would be the two children of this conjunction, if we're trying to draw a parse tree for this statement? Yeah, perfect. So A and B, these two are the operands for and so this is the parse tree for this statement here. In the same way, if we want to make a parse tree for the white statement, what would be the root? What would be at the top of the tree? Okay, we're a bit divided. So what we want to look at is whatever's stickier, and comes before or. So we look at this and first and evaluate that first. So we have an and at the top, and then what would be the two children? We know and has an arity of 2, which means it takes in 2 arguments. So what are the 2 arguments for this and? Or left and not right. Yeah, that's good, Fred. Correct, because we see that this is not C. Not takes in a single arity 1, so that's a unary operator which just takes in the C, and then this or would take in this part here. We have A or B. So this would be a parse tree for this here, and the idea is, with these rules of precedence, we can create a parse tree which is the same every time, as long as we stick to using left associativity with the same operator. Because imagine we had something like A and B and C. I mean, then you could argue we can create 2 parse trees where we have something like A, B, C, or we have A, B, C. So as long as we stick to left associativity and we stick to this order of precedence, our parse trees won't be ambiguous. We'll have a fixed way of sort of organising that parse tree for every propositional statement we want to graphically represent. Any questions about that? B and not C first. So the and sort of takes precedence. The and tells us this is going to be what we. The and tells us this is what we're going to be like sort of evaluating first. So if we had something like A or B and C, wait, I see what you mean. So the precedence tells us what's sort of. I think it would be evaluated like this actually. So instead of being A or B and C, it would be B and not C. So I think you're correct there. It would be or at the top. Okay, so what would the left and right children of or be? A and, yeah, so this would be and then we'd have B and not C. So it would look something like this. Yeah, sorry about that. So the idea is this not is sticky, so we could create some brackets there, and this and is also sticky, so we can create some brackets there, and this is how we'd sort of evaluate that. Yeah, caught me out of that one. So yeah, that's parse trees. If there's no questions there, two terms that you might come across is scope and main connective. So could someone describe to me what's the scope of something? What's the scope of this and here? Respect that. Yeah, so the scope is everything that's well, including that connective itself. The scope is the subtree, where that is the root of that subtree. So in this case, the scope of this AND would be this subtree here, where it's AND BC. And then we also have the main connective. So what does the main connective mean? What is that? Yeah, so the main connective is just the connective for which the entire tree is its scope. The scope of this connective is the whole parse tree. So in this case, this would be a main connective, main connective, main connective. Cool. So looking at the actual syntax of propositional logic, this is a regular way of sort of representing it. Everything is made up of propositions. So P just represents a proposition, and as we said, this can evaluate to true or false, but we're just going to look at how we can write the expressions first. As I've written, this represents an atomic proposition. So all this means is it's a single sort of constant, I like to think of it. And then we can build these up. So we can have a proposition and a proposition. This is just our conjunction. We can have our disjunction. We can have a proposition or a proposition. We can have a proposition implies a proposition. And then we can also have not proposition, so negation. So any propositional statement will be made up of like this sort of language. P defines a language for propositional logic statements. Cool, moving on. Contrapositive. Okay, so what the contrapositive tells us is if we have something like A implies B, what would be the contrapositive of this statement? Yeah, so not B implies not A. And a quick proof for that, if you're unsure, is if we have A and B, both of these can either be, like, these are the possible assignments for A and B. A implies B. Does 0 imply 0? Yes. False implies anything. Does true imply false? No. Does true imply true? Yes. If we know that, and we know not B implies not A, so we want to see if 1 implies 1. That's true. Does 1 imply... No. Does 0 imply 1? Yes. Does 1 imply 0? No. Does 0 imply 0? Yes. So, I mean, one thing you can see is these two are equal. And that's why this is just a rearrangement. This is just the contrapositive. So yeah, that's a nice little truth table to sort of visualize it. Cool. Are there any questions about that? It's fine, we're all nerds. Natural deduction. Okay, so natural deduction is a natural style of constructing a proof. So this is like a human way of making a proof on a step-by-step basis. Syntactic rather than semantic, meaning we don't care about meaning. All we care about is how we're writing it, how we're formatting these proofs, and then the logical operations we're applying to them. We don't care if A means the sky is blue or B means that the grass is red. That doesn't matter. And then proofs are constructed by applying inference rules. So this is a set of rules which we can apply to sort of move a statement closer to what we're trying to infer. When we're doing a natural deduction proof, we start with the premises. So this is the first thing we start at. This is a statement or any axioms or truths that we have to begin with. We want to apply inference rules, and then apply more inference rules and more inference rules. We want to keep applying inference rules until we can infer some conclusion. And so the way we've been taught to write this out, it looks something like this. These are the 4 basic rules that we covered. So, and introduction. If we know that A is true and we know that B is true, then we can infer that A and B is true. If we know that A implies B and we know A is true, then we know B is true. False elimination. If we know false, if we know false, I mean that itself seems like a contradiction, then we can just assume anything is true. And true introduction, if we know nothing, we can assume that true is true because nothing's told us otherwise. But yeah, so and introduction, the rules are written like this, and I. Implication elimination, that's just implication elimination like this. False elimination, that. And then true introduction, we just have this. So most rules you see will either be introduction or elimination. There's a few others which we're going to look at as well. But these are the 4 constructive natural deduction rules that we need to know. And then we have some extra classical reasoning rules. So these aren't in constructive proofs, but if you're told to prove something classically, you can use these 2 rules. You can use law of excluded middle or double negation elimination. So LEM, or law of excluded middle, means if we know nothing, then we know any proposition and its negation, or its negation will be true. I mean, if you think about it, if we know something is either true or false, then we know that the thing opposite it will be whatever it isn't. That was horribly worded. But yeah, the law of excluded middle just says if we know A is a proposition, then not A will be the opposite of that. So this will either be true or false or true. And that will always just end up being true. So that's LEM, and you can almost imagine a proof like a Java program. You can import this wherever you want in a classical proof and just make use of this, which is quite useful. Another one you have is double negation elimination. So if you know not something, then you know that something. If you know that not A is true, then you know A is true, and that's how you'd write it: double negation elimination. Cool. Right. Yeah. So those 2 are classical rules. Don't use these if you're doing a constructive proof. Make sure you stay away from these if you're doing a constructive proof, because if you've been told to do it without using these classical rules, you'll lose marks if you use these. So yeah, that's all the rules covered and everything. I've got a few proofs that I think it will be useful for us to just go through together. I might invite some people onto the stage as well, just to work through some. Let me get them up. But are there any questions about anything particularly we've covered today? What do we need to use truth tables for? I mean, I don't think you'd need to use it in this module, but this is just a nice way of proving the contrapositive. That's why I wrote it out. Because if we know A implies B, then we know not B implies not A. These 2 columns are sort of identical. Yeah. Okay. Is proof in today's lecture? Well, we're covering syntax, so I thought it might be a good idea to just do some constructive proofs. Yeah. So here's a constructive proof. Does anyone want to come on the stage and talk me through how we'd do this proof? I'll give it a few seconds and then I'll talk through it. Which one is constructive? So constructive is without using the classical rules, only using these rules. Okay, so if we have the premises is what we're starting with. This is our premises, and this is our conclusion. We want to get from our premises to our conclusion. So let's start from the bottom. Let's say A implies not B. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna follow the Vincent mentality and start at the bottom. A implies not B. Okay. What rule would we use here? What could we do? Love it. Okay. Implication introduction. And so we have not B. We'll also want to make this an assumption. So we have assumptions, and all that means is we can store some sort of memory of something we can assume. So yeah, here we'd assume A. Assuming A, we can reach not B. Okay, we've got to not B. What could we do now? False elimination. We've got no way of obtaining this false though. So how would we get this false if we did false elimination? False and B. Negation introduction. False introduction. I mean, let's say we try and go to negation introduction. We could do a negation introduction, but then we'd need to find a way it contradicts with this. I mean, let's say we did do false, and then we had something like false elimination. No. As in, we need to get to this false somehow. We can't just put the false in. Like, we've not got any assumptions that tell us false. And so to get this false, we'd need something like a negation elimination. We'd need like A and not A, or something of the sorts to get this false in the first place. Right. Okay, so we do in fact need that false. Okay, so yeah, what do we get it from? Not A and B and A. Okay, so how can we get it from not A and B and A? You're on the right lines. Would B be an assumption after false elimination? It wouldn't quite be A and not. So not A and B is good. And then what we'd have on this side is A and B. So this could be our contradiction. Did you just click? Yeah, I mean, to be fair, to make this exhaustive, we'd have an implication introduction at the bottom, and we'd have the entire what we're trying to solve at the bottom. Just to put... Yeah, that was my bad, because that gives us another assumption, doesn't it? So that gives us assumption 0, which is not A and B. And then I believe we can close that there. Okay, so we've got to this point here, and then how can we get this? What do we need to change? Negation elimination on B. Yeah. So if we do this, and then let's say that's 2, that gives us another assumption, B, and then intro for the left side, right side. So what do you mean? Oh, A and B, yeah. So we can just do that. And introduction. Because we know A is true, and we know B is true, we know A and B is true. And these two we get from our two hypotheses, 1 and 2. And so this would be a constructive proof, because we've not used LEM or DNE. This is a purely constructive proof. anything we can prove constructively, we can prove classically, but it isn't always the case the other way around. Yeah, okay. Is it negation, elimination, or introduction? Oh, that would be negation, yeah. Negation, introduction. Yeah, so we'd introduce it, because this is B, and then we're adding it to that, yeah. My bad. Okay, let's have a go at another one. Let's have a go at this one. Okay. Does anyone want to have a go? Anyone want to join the stage? Okay, I'll give you some time to work through it. Let me know where we're getting. I'll also get some paper out. Put me on. Okay. Hello. What's up? Okay. So.
All right. So you want to start with the whole thing at the bottom,
okay.
And do an implication introduction.
I'll just say this. Implication introduction. Okay. So that will give us an assumption.
That will give you A implies C, which implies not B, implies not C, like that part.
Yeah.
And then your A and not B is your first assumption.
A and B, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, A and B. And then you do another implication introduction.
Yep.
So you have not B and implies not C, yep. And then A implies C is your second one.
Okay.
Then you do a negation introduction.
Negation introduction, okay. So that will give us another assumption.
Which is, what is that? B, what? No.
Yeah, so we'd get B implies not C, which is just the
B implies,
negation
okay.
part, yeah.
So now you have A implies C, and then B implies not C, which is false.
Right, so we'd have something like this, right?
Yeah, you'd have the false first, and then you'd have the two not C's, and then on top of the C's you have A implies C, and then B implies not C.
Yeah.
And I think that's everything.
B implies not C and B, and that would be
A. Yeah. Nice.
Perfect.
Nice.
Good. Are there any questions about this? Does anyone have any? Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So, good job. That would be the proof of that. I'll let you.
Good job, Shay.
Cheers. Okay. And let's have a go at a classical one before we. I think we'll finish off after, but let's get a classical one. Let me see what there is. So remember, we can use DNE and LEM. Those are the two rules we can sort of work with classical. Okay. Let's have a go at this one. I'll give you some minutes, a few minutes to have a go at this. Let me know when you guys are ready. I'll give everyone a few extra minutes if they're having a go at it. I'm also doing it. Where's the logic sheet? I believe it's on Canvas. I can quickly try and find it. I know it's on my notes. Oh, actually, I don't know if I have the full sheet. Oh, perfect. Cheers. Or elimination. Possibly. The sound will have a timer. Oh, no. Oh, it has plugins. Okay, I'll look into that later. I proved it constructively. Yeah, not everything that can be proved classically can be proved constructively, I don't think. But everything that can be proved... Wait, not everything... Yeah, so... I'm confusing myself. Everything that can be proved constructively can be proved classically, but not everything that can be proved classically can be proved constructively. But I think this one can be. Is it a good idea to start at the bottom? I'd say I'd start at the bottom. I mean, that's what I think anyway. So don't take my word for that. I'm not too sure. Okay, let's start a timer for 2 minutes, and then if someone's got it there, they can come up and talk through it. Yeah, I feel like not starting from the bottom, you end up thinking in reverse anyways, and just doing it from the bottom, but just having a huge call stack in your head. Oh, okay. 30 seconds. Cute. Okay. Would anyone like to come up and talk through it? Okay. Right. So, if you want to prove this, we'd start with our implication introductions. So we'd have not A implies B implies C or A implies C or not B. Above that we just have B implies C or A implies C or not B, and then we'd have C or not B. Okay, so this would give us two assumptions which we can use to our advantage later on. So we have 1, not A, and then we have 2, B implies C or A. Okay, and then you're right with the or elimination. So what we do with our classical, because we're using classical, we can do this. So this is LEM. We know B or not B, and so we can say B implies this, which is C or not B, or not B implies C or not B. I mean, let's do this part here, because this part's a lot easier. We can get another assumption with an implication introduction. You can say C or not B, close that with that assumption, and then we can just say this was an or introduction, left, right, right. Okay, so that's how we'd say not B implies C or not B. And then this is a slightly trickier part. B implies C or not B. How could we prove this with our assumptions that we have? B implies C or not B. False, then A or not A. Okay, let's try that. So let's get rid of let's do the implication introduction first, just so we have B as something to work with. Okay, C or not B. Okay, B implies C or A, and not A. Only thing here is that wouldn't be a contradiction, because even if not A is true, this thing can still be true as well, because it would just mean C is true. So we wouldn't get a contradiction from there. If this was an and, then that would be a contradiction. It would prove C is true. Yeah. C or not B. Okay, so how could we write that in terms of rules? What would we need to do to get to C or not B? We want to. So we're saying we want to prove that C is true. And how are we proving that C is true? Our 2 is B implies C or A. Okay, so let's say B implies, or let's just put C or A here, and then put B implies C or A up here. That's closed by our rule 2. This is a implication elimination, and we also got B from 4. Okay, so we have this, C or A, and then we want to say C implies C, or A implies C, just to finish off our or elimination. Okay, C implies C, this is quite trivial. C, close that with 5. A implies C, how can we get this? Using 1. Okay, so we know not A. Yeah, so I mean let's do an implication elimination first. I think that's where whenever we have something like this, we want an implication elimination, get rid of the faff. Let's get 6. That gives us A to work with. And then what do we have with 1 and 6? Yeah, A and not A, perfect, contradiction. So false. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, so we have false because we have A and we have not A. This is closed by 6. This is closed by 1. And this, what would this rule be? Here. A and not A, what would that rule be? To get false. Negation, elimination, yeah, good. So we're getting rid of this negation in a sense, and we're getting false out of this contradiction. Could you go straight to or elimination instead of or introduction? So, oh yeah, because this would be an or introduction left. Are you saying instead of doing this step, have C or A? I mean, I guess you could say C implies C or not B, A implies C or not B. All it would mean is there's like an extra step up here and an extra step up here. So yeah, I think that would make sense. But it would just mean that you have to, yeah, just do one extra step here and here. Because there's no like fixed way of doing a certain proof. There's loads of ways of sort of doing it. There's no one way fits all. But yeah, I think we're going to end this session here. If you guys do want to do some more proofs, I can send you the PDFs which I'm using. It's the ones that Firaz made for all of the help sessions. They're quite good, so I'd recommend just working through them if you want to practice. I'll also put these slides up, and this video will go up on the channel. Yeah, but that's the end of the session. Let me stop the recording.